Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you may see a little link down below to officehours.global. That'll tell you more about what we do. If the first hour is just general discussion about media and virtual production, second hour is usually something we want to spend a little more time on. And, we will only have the first hour on YouTube, and the rest of it you need to sign up at officehours.global, and we'll give you access to the Zoom session where we do the education hour. So, and then later today, we will be opening up for, we're returning to Belfast, the Belfast method. We're going to be taking over a theater in Belfast, and running a concert. So it's going to be pretty exciting. You'll get to see the behind the scenes, and that link went out in Zoom, or in the Zoom update that you get every morning. All right, let's jump into the questions. Guy, what do we have?
First one's coming in from Dennis Champion Walker in South End on CUK, and he says, how much of a problem is screen burn on a Stream Deck, given that it's likely to be showing the same things a lot?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So I've had my Stream Deck since 2017, 2018, and that's the 15-button Stream Deck. And I have yet to see any type of screen burn. I don't think the LCDs work that way in this situation.
There you go. Next question.
Sorry, I actually raised my hand on that one. Did it not pop through?
It did not pop through.
Okay.
Anyway,
Go ahead,
Guy. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, sure. Back at CES 2017, there was a little company in Eureka Park that had the Infiniton, which later became the Stream Deck. And out of all those thousands of booths, I happened to stumble upon it and buy one on the floor for $75, even though there wasn't supposed to be any selling on the floor. Bought this one and quickly made some buttons to control a Stream Deck. And it's still in use by one of my coworkers today. And it has faded a little bit, but it's still going strong. It's not like super faded, but it might just be that the panel's different nowadays. But yeah, it's been around for, like Jeffrey said, since 2017. If you look at the top of the, I don't know if you can see it, the date on the picture says January 2017. So pretty crazy. All right, next one. All right, next one's coming in from Jim Hankins of Chesterfield, Michigan. And Jim asks, with ZoomISO Breakout Room contributions, has anyone experienced a large sync issue if a guest moves to a different room and back?
Go ahead, Rupert.
Yeah, so with Zoom, I'm not sure about ZoomISO, but in Zoom recently, I have heard some anecdotal reports of people having audio problems. So that may fall into the sync category, but audio problems when they move back to the main room after having been in a breakout room. So I haven't investigated those yet. I've just heard anecdotal reports of that, as well as there seem to be a lot of audio problems in general being reported out there in Zoom right now, particularly on the Windows side with the upgrade to Windows 11. I don't know if that's in your use case, but those are the reports I'm seeing. If I get more detail, I'll come back.
Next question.
Next one's coming in from Rupert McRae of Dallas, Texas. And he says, do you think Logitech will evolve the Brio?
I think that they definitely will evolve. I think that they are, they've gotten to a point where it's still, they haven't been, I guess, challenged very much. I think that's one of the big issues is that there's a lot of folks that keep on making web cameras and they keep on not being as good as the Brio at the same price. And I think I think they're in a place where $199 is probably the number they found a lot of people want to buy. Going higher has much less sales. I think that's the number that seems to be working for them. And I think it's probably hard to make a better camera at a lower price right now. So I think that's probably why they're kind of floating. They have a stable system. And of course, as we know, evolving electronics in the current environment is very rough. So they may be also just trying to take what they have and make it work, as opposed to trying to do something. I think that COVID impacted all the webcam developers a lot, especially Logitech. They probably lost, my guess is the lost opportunity for Logitech was somewhere between $50 and $100 million during COVID, because of just not being able to fulfill orders, because there was such an incredible demand for good web cameras at the beginning of COVID. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Well, Logitech also makes a whole bunch of other stuff, and they're probably focusing on keyboards and mice for MacBooks right now. But I would guess that with their recent acquisitions of both Blue microphones and the Mevo Start, which was just this last month, that they're going to be really building those up, and maybe it won't be called the Brio, but with better microphones in and better cameras, and being able to move it around, creating scenes from a 4K stance. I think that's where their focus is going to go on the next whatever next version they come out with. But C920 when it was lasted 10 years before it got updated, and that was a great camera.
And the Brio came out, I think, in 2014 or 2015. I mean, I think it came out earlier. It's just that the first version was horrendous. Just the OS was horrendous. It just didn't work. So then they got it working, and now it's still pretty good. That's what I'm on right now, is a Brio in my hotel room. I think that the thing that was really visionary that I just wish someone would come back and look at again is the Cisco made it Precision HD. Which during COVID you could sell used for $1,000 because it was so valuable. 1-inch sensor, so that was part of it. It's 1-inch sensor, 720p. It was really an odd collection. I think we had 20 or 30 of them, which hurt because I just got rid of them when I closed my company. I could have funded a lot of things with those used ones on eBay, but I felt like Cisco really, they played that maybe they didn't win at the time. But I think a 1/2-inch or a 1-inch, especially a 1-inch sensor on a webcam for 300, I think that a lot of times we end up with these webcams say 4K and they say all these other things, but what we're not getting is a large chip that looks great, that has a little bit of depth of field action going on. And it's unfortunate that we haven't seen that, because I think it would do really well at $300, $350 if it was significantly better. It just can't be kind of better. Like the Huddle Cam is better than the Brio to some degree, but only a little, and not enough. I think the HDMI makes it a lot better, but not enough to go to $300 for most people. Next question.
Ooh, that one jumped on me.
Because I hit it. Sorry.
Okay.
I have a tendency. I'll leave it to you. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Jason Robert Shaw of Sarasota, Florida, and he says, I just heard about playoutbee. Please explain it to a newbie and how I can get started. Thanks.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, so playoutbee is an app that runs on the Raspberry Pi. A few months ago, we had a build where we actually got together before it was called After Hours, in an After Hours session, and did a little build out of building the Pi, which took about an hour. And I think going slow, it might have even taken an hour and a half because we had so many people. But it's pretty easy. It's an app that's about $30, but it's the whole OS when you buy it. So you get it on Gumroad, which is fellow panelist Jonas Dettel, who's normally on here, is in Germany. He developed this to be able to play out files. Simply, once it's installed, you take the HDMI out of the Pi and you plug it into, let's say, your ATEM, and then you can actually fire off a playlist from. So you can do an auto roll, which when you cut to that media source will allow that clip to play. The neat thing is that once it's on the network, you can fire off and upload clips from any browser on your network. So really cool software, and glad to have him part of our team. And it's only getting better and better. I've gotten to play with it I have it on the Mac build as well. So he's doing some cool stuff behind the scenes. I don't want to unveil anything, but he's working on it.
Jim?
Hard to add anything to Guy's list there. Just specifically how to get to the control panel. If you're trying to figure that out from on the local network via a browser, you can just type playoutbee.local/control, and that'll give you the control panel, and playoutbee.local will give you the player. So that's it. It's awesome.
That's great. Next question. Sorry, I did it again.
That's all right. Now I know. I'm prepared. Yeah. Tlaloc Miguel Lopez Waterman in Astoria, New York asks, for those of you thinking through decentralized production, what things would you put in place for remote access, VPN, or otherwise for remote access and control? This question is about initial installs for venues, theaters, etc.
Go ahead, Rupert.
So we talk about VPN a lot. So, I mean, we've kind of covered that. I think you can do the Meraki route, or, there's some solutions out there with the AWS and things like that. Jim's talked about that quite a lot. But, part of your general connectivity plan should be, backup connections, all of that. That's not just for your stream and for your bandwidth, though. That's also for your out of band management. If something goes wrong, if your site goes down, if you're trying to support that site remotely, you need some other route to be able to get in if the core infrastructure is down. So remote access control, it's definitely important to have a second way in, to get in there and fix things. For dealing with these, trying to support these sites remotely, if things do go down, I think we often talk about the solutions we need. And once we've got that in place, it's all about, well, what do you then do if things go wrong? What's your plan B? And for supporting equipment when you're not there locally, you can have things maybe that won't boot, or you can't get to connect. Some of those cases, I've used these things called crash card adapters, which connect to a computer, via HDMI, and it's basically like remote KVM over IP or over the internet or from another machine. So if a machine won't boot and you can't get it onto the internet, for example, using a crash card adapter is another way of getting what would otherwise be local console access, to that machine via its monitor output. So you can even boot into the BIOS remotely and get in that way. I think having those on some of these remote sites would be really invaluable. And then once everything is in place, I think we're going to have a security piece to take care. Once we've got the infrastructure set up, security, I think, will be a thing that needs to be kept in mind for avoid the vulnerabilities and avoid that kind of thing. I think that'll be a big part of this distributed model moving forward.
Yeah, I think that the VPN is kind of a in-between state that we're going to use for the next year, maybe another 2 years. But as we look at what we're doing with Office Hours 2.0, I think that you're going to end up with a situation where we start creating entirely new tools that have interfaces that give you what you need to run something remotely. And you're not really logging into that hardware. We're kind of abstracting the control of that hardware to what you need, in a remote location. I think that I feel like the closer we get to that, the more that feels more like the future. Go ahead, Peter.
I use a product for VPN, at least, called Zero Tier. I've mentioned it here a couple of times. The beauty of Zero Tier is that once you set it up properly, it'll use your corporate network, and it'll be proper peer-to-peer, and it won't go out via the cloud. However, though, it's got the beauty of a failback. If something happens on your corporate network or your private network, whatever, it will actually then route via the zero-tier cloud servers, the enterprise servers that they've got too. So you've got pretty much a DR capability through their service. If you need to try it, it's free for 100 clients, which is pretty phenomenal if you want to try it. And I've been using it since 2015, so 5 or 6 years, and it's flawless, totally flawless. You do need to run a client on your network, obviously. They've even got an iPhone app, so yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's great. Jeffrey?
Looking into what's called multi-protocol label switching is a great thing. And of course, if you start getting into what's called SD-WAN, where it's actually taking more than one internet line and connecting them up in a business, that's where the MLPS will start to come into play. And the idea is that you then hook up your connection with their connection through the MLPS. So it's kind of like a more direct route, like your own courier service going into the internet. You'll be able to connect up. There'll be VPN on there, of course. And then, of course, it also means that the location that you're sending it to will have at least two internet lines coming in. So there'll be some sort of stability for anything that they're doing for their video. And you can set that up so they can pop over between two internet connections, or they just stay on one internet connection, whereas all business goes through the second one, and you can really separate that out.
Next question.
Next one's coming in from Jeffrey Powers of Madison, Wisconsin, and he asks, with no spoilers, talk about the cinematography of Dune.
Roscoe.
Yeah, I was just going to say it shows why the desert is such an amazing place to go film stuff. And they used a lot of golden hour shots where the sun is providing a very low light angle. And I thought that, so both of those things take a lot of planning, because golden hour truly is about an hour or maybe an hour and a half. And so if you don't get in there and get your shots in that limited time period, it costs you a lot to pay the whole crew to be there for another day and to come back. But yeah, it was some really amazing shots. it's hard for me, to be honest. I've only seen the trailer. I haven't seen the movie, but to look at it and say whether or not a lot of those were done in post and effects also. So that would be an interesting topic to discuss.
Yeah, I watched the first half of it. It was late. I had to leave, I had to get up very early for this, and but I could not see some of it, and it was almost impossible. I almost went ahead and watched the whole thing. So far, what I've seen is a great movie. I feel like the CG is not as good as I expected it to be. I will say that's the only thing that I was a little underwhelmed by. I don't feel like the edge detail. What I mean by that is when you see the edges of ships and so on and so forth along those edges, we want to see a little bit of detail there, and I didn't see the breakup that you would normally see across those, and so it felt more CG to me. Some of the texture mapping was not what I would not what I would do. So I think that I've been a little distracted by the CG of the exteriors, but as far as much of it, it's just really a stunningly well shot movie. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm going to watch the rest of it. We probably won't talk about it. We'll give everybody 2 more weeks, and then we're going to start talking about it. So I'm warning you. You got 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I think, is fair. Then we'll start talking about the movie. So figure out when you're going to watch it, or we'll give you warning that we're going to talk about it, and then we'll go from there. All right, next question.
Next one's coming in from Rupert McRae, Dallas, Texas. What is the ideal size for a telestrator?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Doesn't that I would think that and from what I've used as telestrators, it's all about what you have for a distance between you and the camera for the size of the telestrator, because I've built my own telestrator, and going for like 2-3 feet across, it does a great job in seeing what I need to see and doing what I need to do, whereas I'm guessing if I wanted to do something a little bit farther out, I'd probably want to get a bigger screen for that. So Alex is taking pictures.
Well, Alex is taking
a question. So anyway, go ahead, Guy.
I borrowed a 24-inch Wacom Cintiq Touch, and I have it downstairs right now, and I tried to use it here in office hours. It is way too heavy. It is massive, and it is way too heavy. So I think a 16-inch, is that the one you have, Alex, a 16-inch?
Yeah, so I had 5 of the 22-inch, because that's what we got. The 24-inch, I'm sorry, 24, 22, something like that. We got 5 of the large ones for Final Cut virtual user group, and the Final Cut. But on a general use case, I found that those were too big. So I agree with you, Guy, that 16 was the right. And I have mine on a monitor arm. So I have a Visa mount it's a Visa mount for an iPad that you can kind of open and close. I think we've talked about those in the past. And I have that monitor arm, so I can swing it in, not here in the hotel, but at my house, and so I can swing it in, as opposed to for a long time I had it sitting right in front of me, but it took up all my desk space. So now I have it. I can swing it in and draw on it there. It works well. Next question.
Next one's coming in from JB in Wisconsin, and he says, I'm interested in Alex's mobile setup today. Would it be possible to see some pictures and get a walkthrough?
I was trying to do that. One of the things I thought was really interesting that I hadn't seen before, and I don't know if it's always been there. Oh, no, it's not there. For a minute when I was on Zoom, it said, do you want to use your phone as an input? And then like without any drivers or anything else. And I had not. It said that, now it's not saying that. So anyway, so we'll see. I want to see if it updated. I took it quickly here. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see. It hasn't loaded to my computer yet. So I'll just tell you what it is right now. Maybe I'll show it a little later. I have across front of me the hotel the hotel room that I'm staying in is not as nice as the ones I normally stay in, just because of the huge price spike this weekend in LA. I have a desk that literally folds out from the walls. It's a really the goofiest desk I've ever seen. And so what I did is but it had a little box. And so I lined up, I carry, when I travel, I have 4 of the Pano 6Cs, the Pano Tube 6Cs. So I have 3 of them just lined up across the right in front of me here. And then I put one on a stand over here. So that's what I have there. I have a Brio that I'm looking into, and I have a mix pre with a trim-in headset. I usually light up the background, and I brought new aperture lights that I started testing instead of the hue lights. And the fixtures in this hotel aren't standard. So the last one was really easy to change. And so I changed with hue lights, and I was all excited to bring my aperture lights in. Then this one doesn't do that. So it's a little bit more austere than I expected. But anyway, that's the basic setup. I'll try to show the image a little later. It just hasn't loaded to my computer yet from my phone. So we'll see if I can show it by the end of the show. Anyway, next question.
Roscoe Jones, north of Disneyland is his location, and he says, death on a film set. How do you deal with a union camera crew walking off of a set over working conditions? Long hours plus 50 miles commute and continue production. Sadly, this dysfunction took the focus off of safety, if it was ever there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's happened leading up to this is of course the
Alex, you want to start over?
Happened in New Mexico over last week. Can you describe? Did I break up?
You're breaking
Sorry, did I break up?
Yeah, you might want to start again.
Yeah, so it probably has to do with me taking that photo, because it's probably trying to upload the photo while I'm talking, because I'm using my phone for that. Probably wasn't one of my better ideas. This was from the accidental shooting that happened over last week. And Roscoe, do you want to kind of explain what happened there?
Yeah, a prop gun.
From what we know.
A prop gun was, and this is the thing, I don't know, no one knows for sure. Somebody thinks actually a live round was put into a prop gun. That, to me, sounds like a willful act of sabotage causing a death. I doubt. The other thing I've heard is that it was possibly, a lot of times, now I used to work Jungle Cruise at Disneyland, and they used to put a ring in the gun so that any normal bullet put in there would not come on. It would actually explode the barrel of the gun or lodge it up, rather than allow something to come out and be fired. And so a lot of prop guns have that. The one thing it's interesting is that prop ammunition is actually more powerful than regular ammunition, and that has to do with the fact that the shutter of the camera is only open a certain length of time. They actually need the flames to come out the end of the camera to be of a certain length so that it can be seen while the shutter is open. They need it to be out there for a while. So I don't know exactly how the projectile, what was in the gun, but it does sound like a bullet. And Alec Baldwin was told they used the term cold gun. There are different terminology, but on a set, there's supposed to be a person who prepares the gun, a person who maintains possession of the gun, and a person who presents the gun to an actor at the point in time that they're going to use it, and if necessary, shows that actor exactly what the safety mechanisms are. It is speculated that they were using period guns or single revolvers, single action revolvers, so that also is a little older technology. It makes them actually harder to fire. But I don't know all the very minute details. But at the end of the day, somebody failed, and it cost a life of a young lady.
Yeah, it's use of firearms on a set, definitely is one of the things that you pay the most attention to when you're doing it. And the hard part is that a lot of people don't grow up with proper protocol as it is. That I grew up in the country, and rule number one to almost everything was that you never point a gun, whether it's you never point a gun at anything you don't want to shoot, ever. It's like it's and so it is.
You're breaking up quite a bit again.
So I think that
Let's move.
When you have actors who don't grow up with any kind of
Alex,
not
I think
really
we better move on because we
Yeah,
got
we gotta
Alex,
move on.
I'm going to go ahead and read the
that
next
process,
question.
but the and moving is going to drop out, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so yeah, so I think can you hear me?
You're breaking up quite a bit. I'll go ahead and take on the next question. If we can go ahead and move along.
Hey Guy, I'm gonna. Can you take on both roles of just doing it? I don't think I can keep rolling.
Sure. Yeah, it's getting a little rough. So
hold on, let me. Hold on. Yeah, Guy, can you take on? Are you?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead and take on to the next section. Or Jim Hankins, did you have something that you wanted to follow up on that one?
Yeah, I think Alex was trying to cover what I was going to essentially, highlight is there were a number of failures, obviously, that unfortunately resulted in the loss of life, and the actual firearms handling is something that hopefully will be a lesson learned out of that. That always keep it pointed a safe direction, keep your finger off the trigger, treat all firearms as if they're loaded and real, even if you're dealing with supposed prop guns or trainers. So yeah, very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Roscoe, you want to go ahead and add on to that?
I was just gonna. I mean, to me, the fact that it was a death is fine, but how do you deal with the chaotic set is more the question, because there was a specific event. The crew walked off 6 hours before this incident took place. I seriously hope nobody sabotaged the set. I seriously hope that. That would just be horrendous. But at the same time, there are issues where things become stressful. How do you know when to shut down a production, or just, hey, everyone go home for the day and come back to it? So that may be a broader question I'm trying to reach to from this one incident, but that's probably something I've more dealt with.
Yeah, a little speculation. It's so early. We want to be really careful about what we're saying here, because we don't know, and then those details will unfold here over the next few weeks. As there's some interesting stuff on TikTok from people that were there. If you want to look up from people that were there, instead of let's try not to draw too many conclusions at the moment. Rupert, did you want to add on to that one, or you're good? Okay. Let's go ahead and finish that one off, and we'll go on to Eric Price. Eric Price asks, saw the early showing of Dune Thursday night in IMAX, and the dialogue was hard to hear over the music and sound effects. Was this likely a problem with the theater's mix rather than the film itself? And we'll go to Jeffrey Powers.
So I actually watched it on my big screen at home, excuse me, through HBO Max. We didn't have any problems, but we did hear some really interesting sound, especially when they go through this, because he had some sort of mental ability to project his voice and do command, kind of like a Jedi mind trick type thing. And whenever they went into that mode, it kind of really messed things up, even to the point where Jennifer was turning to me and going, "Is our surround sound not working right?" Because so I was noticing a lot of noise on that. But as for the sound effects and music, we had a really good balance of hearing the voices. So it could have been the theater, but it could be the theater run too.
I'd have to agree. It's hard to say that a big theater like that would have those kind of issues, but usually they got to certify those. So I can't imagine it not being perfect, because they wouldn't release something like that without it being perfect. So we'll go ahead and move on to Hasmukh's next question. Hasmukh Jar in Cape Town, South Africa, says, after hours was unusually desolate today. The usual suspects who come on South Africa time, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. into after hours, were all celebrating we're all celebrating a heavy Friday night, ? Fortunately, no newbies to after hours today. How can we ensure there is good enough activity, especially on a Saturday? A lab ? And we've got Chad coming in with the first. Go for it, Chad.
To ensure activity, be there and be active. What I like to do, I'll pop in from time to time. I'm not a frequent visitor to after hours, but when I show up, if it's quiet for a long time, I'll say, "Hi." And then somebody always turns on their camera and starts talking, and we have a conversation going for the next 3 hours. And it's always fun. It's always interesting. We always find something engaging to talk about, or reading scripts, or watching old movies together. It's a good time if you just open up the mic and contribute to it.
Let's go ahead with Jeffrey Powers.
So I was host last night. I took it over from David Brady, and it was about 6 or 7 p.m. last night Central Time, and it was very dead. I did do that a few times, and nothing. Nobody came on, and they didn't. People didn't start showing up until about 10 o'clock. So, and once again, I was watching Dune, so I had the secondary screen up, and of course my headphones on, just to make sure that nothing was going to happen while that happened. But yeah, it was pretty desolate last night, and I think we're just going to have that every now and then, especially on a Friday and Saturday night. Whereas it's time, you got to be in family time mode sometimes, and sit around the table eating dinner with family. So it happens.
Nice. And Rupert.
So it reminds me of like the ham radio activity. Sometimes people go through the channels and don't hear anybody. Well, they're also not calling for anybody. I think in after hours, a recognized method is to say a keyword 3 times, like cat 5, cat 5, cat 5.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and jump to the next question. It's coming in from Jason Robert Shaw, and he's in Sarasota, Florida. And he says, what is the craziest, silliest, or most absurd thing / equipment hack process that should not have worked in a production, but still worked? Not seen any hands raised on that one. I'll go ahead and mention one. We were doing a charity event, and one of the hosts wanted to do a remote, and this was last minute. This was a 24-hour live stream, and we were trying to figure out how to do it. And one of the people that were contributing the donations to had a LiveView 800 backpack. So we took that to the local mall, and he wanted to dance through the mall to a Macklemore song. And we were like, the delay is going to be insane because we had to go RTSP. And so there was like a 20-second delay. And so what we wound up doing is putting it was a TriCaster and pretty good crew running. They said, let's just take a AirPod, put it in his ear, and when I tell him to go, he's going to go, and that'll be the moment that I'm cutting to him, and we'll take him in hot. And so he was like 20 seconds delayed to the audience, but he did it. He danced through while they played Macklemore. He could hear the song in his ear, and it was just a web browser input into the TriCaster. So we were just capturing a laptop screen, full screen. There's 11,000 people watching, and we pulled it off, and it was awesome. Like it was a spur of the moment thing, and we actually wound up going live a couple times after that in that same way because it worked so well. So that was one that was very cool. That was just a hack that these guys came up with, spur of the moment. But sometimes that's what happens. You just got to roll with the host wants something. Run a quick test and see if you can pull it off. Anybody else want to tell a quick story? Nobody? Come on. All right. Go ahead and wrap that one up. Good question, though, Jason. Next one's coming in from Dennis Champion Walker in Southend-on-Sea in the UK. He says, Hasmukh shared a Bitfocus Companion page to show us who is unmuted in ZoomOSC with me today. What cool tools do others have on their stream decks? Okay, Peter Moore's got something. Come on, Peter. Show us.
I've got, with the latest update, well, the big update this year where they have now got all their own icons and sounds and everything. It's really, really cool now. Well, it was cool anyway, but it's even cooler. But I've managed to have a panel on mine where I can switch between all of my panels, and I just rotate through it. So I've actually got the matrix icon. That's just a GIF or GIF, top right corner. So I press that, and that icon is on every single panel, and it takes me through to the next panel. So if I can always go back to the start if you like. But one thing I do like is that it's been in Stream Deck for a while, but you can actually assign an active application to activate a Stream Deck panel. And I'm not sure if that's common knowledge or not, but it's not quite buried, but it's reasonably buried in the settings. And so if you have, for example, Zoom and you got a Stream Deck plugged in, it'll actually load that particular panel for you so you can do the the mute of your microphone, turn off your video. I've got light settings as well on that panel, so I can up the light, down the light, whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of really, really cool things in the recent version.
How about you, Rupert? What do you got in yours?
I was just going to mention that a couple of people here have got, I forget even what it's called, but they've got something that gives them the live preview. I think out of vMix on the Stream Deck buttons of a video source, actually in live. I think it's like 5 or 10 frames a second or something, but that would be a good use case. But Guy, I was going to pass you a ball. What have you got stuck to the back of your Stream Deck?
Oh, passing me the ball. This is a little pop socket that is got a Zoom logo on it. Thanks, John from John Ilson for sending it to me. But then I'm able to cut. So if I want to go to a picture, I can go to that picture. If I want to do an overlay, I can do an overlay. I got previous next. I've got gallery view, speaker view if I'm cutting the show. I've got my mute button. So a lot of handy things on this one. And then I have the bigger one next to me that has PTZ control, recall camera presets. There's a couple other merge transitions, cuts, autos. There's tons of stuff in here. Swap boxes, cycle control, zoom pin, bugs, camera controls, macros, and then all the stuff that you can do in mix effects. So I got a ton of stuff on mine. I'm anxious to hear what Jim's got on his.
Yeah, so I guess the off the wall thing I have is I have access control on doors, and our front door is typically locked all the time, but we have scheduled classes, or we have people that would need to essentially buzz in like the old style buzzing in of people on in New York, right? So the Stream Deck is able to either momentarily unlock the door or unlatch it for break time or what have you. So we use that, and we have that in all the Stream Decks to be able to buzz people in. So.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and take the next question in from Douglas Carmichael. And he says, as I refined my Isadora patch, I consolidated it into a single user actor, and it became much easier to understand. In that vein, what are some ways to streamline production infrastructures and processes to foster efficiency and repeatability? And nobody's raising their hand, but I did catch, Roscoe is. Let's go ahead and grab Roscoe.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do this with students all the time. You're trying to meetings is one thing to streamline your infrastructure, but it's a place where you make an argument for Dante technologies, the ATEM whole system where you simplified your cabling down to literally, in the current case, is a power cable and an HDMI cable running out to cameras mounted on a wall. So I mean, simplifying just the technology itself does simplify itself. You look for specific technology to apply. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to buy out an entire system. You can't just go out and buy one little box and suddenly be doing Dante. Everything in your system has to speak Dante. But from a human standpoint, it's just really good meetings with people who understand what they're doing, and then good comms, streamlines efficiency, and then working together over a period of time. By the way that a student show from the first day they go into what we call tech, which is usually the week before they open the show, versus the last day, it's tremendous just to see the development and the efficiencies that come up just in the communication between the people.
Great. And I did notice that in a previous episode, Andy talked about these nodes where he has to consolidate them or fold them down. So it's kind of like having a bunch of layers and just folding them, a compound clip in After Effects, if some people know what that is. It's just sometimes easier to just put a bunch of stuff in one thing but then consolidate it into one, and then you can toss it around like nothing. So I think that's based on what I saw him and Telelocal working on yesterday in After Hours. I believe that's what he was talking about. So yeah, compound clipping or just folding stuff down. Let's go ahead and jump on to the next one, which is coming in from Peter Moore, and he's asking, and he's in Auckland, New Zealand. He's asking Linus of Linus Tech tips, etc. Said his WAN show that they're dropping BMD cameras favoring Sony's. Thoughts? And we got Jeffrey Powers popping up.
Well, I would guess that the first and foremost thing is that Linus Tech Tech Tips is a business, and they're probably worked out a deal with Sony to fill their studio with Sonys. So they probably made the announcement to let everybody know that that's what they're switching to, without knowing, without watching that. That's just purely a guess. But I run Sonys in my shop, and I've run Sonys for many years. I switched from Canon to Sony, and there's a lot of features that I really like. The biggest thing is the sensor, because a lot of these extra cameras, these small webcams, the Huddle Cam, for example, and the Elgato Face Cam, these are all Sony sensors that are in the back end. And so there's a little bit of trust that I have in the Sony brand for the sensor.
Peter Moore.
Yeah, Jeffrey, that's correct. They mentioned the sensor, the low light. He said they had low light issues with the Blackmagic, but you just touched on something that I didn't actually consider, and I should have. He could have been sponsored by them, but yeah, I'll post a link to the actual minute mark because they've got it annotated in their video to where he mentions that they're switching. But no, you're right. I didn't consider that, and thank you.
That's a good point, Jeffrey. All right, let's move on to the next one. Coming in from our friend Douglas Carmichael, and he says, in an answer to my question about TWiT, using a single TD, it was said that their shows are designed for one-person operation. What tools could consolidate and automate production infrastructures with a single pane of glass interface? And in parentheses, he has Isadora ? And we've got the first one coming in from Roscoe.
Yeah, I mean, I think Isadora can be great, but for this simple show, for my role right now, I have 7 windows open, and I have multiple tabs in those windows. So if you're talking about trying to get things down to a single pane, I actually think the organization of windows is more important. And sometimes right in the middle, I have to go here and suddenly I get to my webcam settings, open that up. That's just another little pop-up, and then I can do my adjustments. So I think not necessarily getting everything simplified to a single pane, but just having layers and different windows that you can get to and knowing how to use them to get to the end product you want.
Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, I do a show every single week, and it's just me that's doing the show. And I don't have Isadora. I have Stream Decks. I have a few of them sitting around here. But I've seen TWiT's infrastructure from when they were in the cottage, when they were in the brick house, and well, of course, the new East Side one. I haven't been to that location, but it's always been set up so one person could actually run the whole thing. I remember one of their teammates who's no longer on the show used to do a late night show, and he'd be the only one there, and he'd actually be sitting behind, at the time they had the TriCaster console, he'd be sitting behind the TriCaster console with a PR4 in his hand, and taking calls and taking questions and doing it from there. So Isadora is a great program to do that, but there are many other programs that you can do to do automation.
All right, thank you for that, Jeffrey. It looks like we got quite a few questions building up, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next one and try to burn through these ones pretty quick so the educators can let in a little bit early. Next one's coming in from Jason Robertshaw in Sarasota, Florida, and he says, bought a cheap USB-C hub from Sam's for a MacBook Pro 13-inch Intel. Runs in clamshell. Seems when I leave the hub in, the MacBook Pro will shut down and restart sometimes overnight. Leave hub unplugged, no restarts. Causation, correlation, and we've got first Robert McRae, followed by Michael.
I'd just like to know whether this is a USB hub or maybe some kind of docking station, and what you've got connected to it. I'm thinking power problem, maybe, like if that is a docking station, it's providing power, maybe it's not providing enough, or depending on what you've got connected to it, maybe there's some not enough power issue there overnight, or it's not charging properly, or if you've got it in clamshell mode overnight and perhaps you have it open during the day, whether it's a heat issue. So power and heat beyond that, maybe just maybe a bit of compatibility issue there.
Michael?
Yes, everything Rupert said. Check your power settings and see what's going on. I had the same type of issues, and I ended up going to OWC and MacSales.com and getting one of their units, and it's been very successful and happy with it. Go check out OWC and MacSales.com for no fuss option.
All right, Peter Moore.
I agree with what Jeffrey and Michael said, but I'd also add in that perhaps you might want to check to see if that particular hardware is causing the Mac to drain its battery and power off and not go to sleep overnight. And when you actually open the actual laptop, you're then triggering the power to come back on. So I check the battery if you've got the battery in the toolbar to see what the battery setting is, whether what percentage charge it might be when you open it up the next morning, because that could tell you that it's interfering with the laptop being charged overnight.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on to the next one by Tony Mobley. And he's in Newton, Georgia. And he says, is Alex using his traveling light bulbs this morning? And we've got first Chad Lafarge.
Previously, Alex has demonstrated using Philips Hue bulbs. That's not what he's using now. I think he decided that the Hue weren't doing the job that he needed them to do. This morning, he talked about using the Nanlite Pavotube 6C. He has 3 horizontally in front and above him, and then on his right side, he has an additional one that he's using. So I hope that helps.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and move. Thank you for that, Chad. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is coming in from our friend Douglas Carmichael. And he says, Guy, you mentioned stuff on TikTok from people who were on set. Wouldn't most productions have strict NDAs and ban use of social media applications on set? Let's go ahead and grab Roscoe.
Yeah, of course, if you're on set, any use of any kind of photographic device immediately have you probably escorted out by security, and you'll lose your possible career. But you go back to your hotel room, it's an open season to say what you want.
Thanks. And Rupert?
Yeah, you can have whatever agreements you like, but sometimes people just do what they want.
Yeah, this one that I had mentioned on TikTok was from somebody from IATSE 40. And so they were speaking with an authority, and they heard more of what had gone down. So I'm sure you could find it if you go digging. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Next one's coming in from Jason Robertshaw, Sarasota, Florida. And he says, I need something like the Elgato Multi Mount. Is there a better option for that price? And let's go with Rupert.
So for that price, I'm not sure. I mean, the Elgato system is a nice system. It has a whole lot of different components that can keep you in a ecosystem, but you really want to look at that range to see whether that's going to be able to grow with you. There's some other systems out there like the Triad Orbit stuff, and even some of the Vivo mounts. I mean, the nice thing about those is you'll find a lot of common sizes out there. So if later you end up having to mix and match different hardware, you'll find that a lot of those sizes are consistent, and you can blend those components together. Whereas some of that Elgato stuff, you may not be able to do that, but the Triad Orbit stuff's pretty solid.
Yeah, the Triad Orbit stuff, if you guys haven't seen it, I'm using one right now. Go to their Instagram and take a look at some of the crazy stuff that they do. The latest post I saw was mounting a mic just like this above a piano, and it's using the exact same mount. I wouldn't do what they did, but take a look at some of the pictures. It's got to be seen to believe. Next one's coming in from Jason Roberts, again in Florida, and he says, I need something like the Elgato Multi Mount. That's the one we just read. Rupert McRae. What is Promethean up to these days? Promethean. You want to follow?
They were big in education. They made a lot of the smartboard back in the day. You project onto and write on those virtual boards. A lot like, I thought of the question earlier when we were talking about telestration and stuff like that. I know that that was a space they were in. I just wondered what they're doing these days.
Looks like Chad's showing something on there, and Peter's got something that he wants to say.
Just don't confuse it with Prometheus, which is some monitoring software, because that's probably very easy to do.
All righty, let's go on to the next one from Hasmukh Ajar in Cape Town, and he says, Alex mentioned that Pages may replace iBooks. iBooks with the authoring tools Apple availed has not reached its potential. is now the time to create content in Pages, and how would you make iBook? How would you make it iBook-like? And first one is coming in from Roscoe.
Yeah, there's an open source kind of format called EPUB, and under the advanced export options in Pages, you can push your document. And Pages is great for just laying stuff out. I use it all the time to just, research. That's the word, not plagiarize or steal. Take some research and put it into a format that you can hand out in a handout pretty easily to a student. I do always try and credit where it comes from. But yeah, Pages is just a great layout tool, and the fact that you can go out to a open source EPUB is a nice feature. So that's how I'd go with it.
I know if Alex was here, he'd be talking about the future of education with being able to take these 3D LiDAR scans and scanning objects and dropping them into Keynote, and that is the future. I can't wait to see it. I just got the new iPhone that has a LiDAR in it, and can't wait to start doing some of those scans and seeing what it looks like and dropping them into Keynote. Next question is coming in from Douglas Carmichael, and he says, after being impressed by the flexible Waves SoundGrid networking platform, I bought into a small system for my studio. While it's been great for my own music production, would it be the wrong choice versus Dante for virtual event production clients? Crickets. Where's the cricket sound effect? Doesn't look like we have anybody here. I know, Jib, what do you think of that system that you're using with Dante and the BSS?
I like it. It is, a little long in the tooth from the perspective of, how old it is. I think that originally came out in 2012, but so far it's, kind of checking the box for the things we use it for. So yeah, something to think about. It's quite pricey. I was able to get one, new in box off of eBay that was, orders of magnitude cheaper than what they normally list for. So I don't know that I would have gone for it at full list price. But as far as Dante as a solution overall, I'm really digging it. We've got a pretty good investment in that, and it's treating us right. So
nice. Let's go with Chad Lafarge.
I also wanted to make the general observation that the right tool for the job is the one that you've got and you can use.
Very well said. Rupert.
I just wasn't sure whether SoundGrid was IP based. I know it's over Ethernet, but is it over IP? Dante is obviously IP. There's one of these protocols out there that is Ethernet, but doesn't use IP. Does anybody know if that's the one?
Not sure on that one. I dug into it a little bit, and I believe that Tucker, who comes on every once in a while, he's a Emotion LV1 user, which I believe uses SoundGrid. So I'm pretty sure that there's some hardware along with the panels, but you can add Dante onto it. So I'm not sure how it all works. Maybe Douglas asked that question again when we got some of the folks that are users. Definitely when Tucker's on, he'll be able to fill your ear. But saw a picture this morning. His flight got canceled, so he's stuck in Texas, or was it Texas? Somewhere out there. But he ran into Brian Maddox, who would also be able to answer this question at the airport. Small world. Let's go into the next question. And last question, looks like, from Douglas Carmichael again. And he says, with the discontinuation of Dante PCIe card, with the RME Digiface Dante, and he's got a link, or similar Thunderbolt Dante interface, be a useful option for ultra-low latency Dante connectivity? And we'll let Jim Hankins take this.
Yeah, so I actually ended up with this exact interface for a completely different reason, and it was essentially to deal with Dante connectivity into the constellation for the MADI interface, and so I'm just using it as a standalone MADI to Dante, bridge, if you will, right? It's working great, and it is pricey. So it is an expensive option to do that, but I am happy with it. So yeah, I'd be interested if there are other options out there that perhaps don't have the MADI that would check the box for something like that. I'm a little concerned about using a software only solution. So DVS that I would bet my life on. But so far it's working, at least on the Windows platform. So.
Awesome. Last one for this hour before we jump into the educators. Lou Perez, Phoenix, Arizona. Outside of AWS, can anyone recommend a hosting company with options for performance, hardware, high I/O, and excellent customer service? Thinking like a rack space provider. First one's Peter Moore.
The DigitalOcean have been around for a long time, and you'll find that when you do some Googling for certain products, you'll always end up at the DigitalOcean website because their documentation is second to none. Pretty much, they call their virtual instances droplets. So, but basically that's similar to an AWS EC2 instance. So, yeah, and you've got various other providers out there. You've got IBM, you've got Google, Oracle. I wouldn't recommend Oracle, but that's just personal.
All right, Rupert.
I've used fast hosts in the past. They described their customer service as fanatical, and I'd agree with that.
Nice. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this first hour. We'll go ahead and take 10, 15 minutes to let the educators in and get the mic checks done. Let's see. Where's Jeffrey Powers? Is Jeffrey Powers around to do mic checks?
Yep.